Season 3, Episode 2 opens with a grieving mother beholding the corpse of her recently killed son. Her son, who happens to be the next in line to inherit the throne after herself. And what does she have to say? What grand monologue does she have to share with the audience or with the considerable crowd of servants and political rivals and colleagues and contemporaries who surround her? She's not alone with the corpse of her son. Oh no! She is performing for an audience in more ways than one. And what does she have to say? What great wisdom or philosophy have the screenwriters decided to share with us here? All she has to say is, quote, "How could you do this to me?" She repeats this line again and again and again, interspersed with the question, or the demand, "You answer me." Now, I don't care if you leave a comment in my comment section saying, "You were in that situation once, and that's exactly what you said." Hypothetically, you can sympathize, because if you ever found yourself in that situation, that's what you'd have to say. This is heightened life. This is drama. This is theater. This is screenwriting. It's not about you. It's not about the meaningless sufferings of mediocre people who have nothing to say for themselves. It's not about... This scene at the start of episode 2 is actually paying off what was set up in episode 1 when the queen was locked in a room against her will and not allowed to go and participate in a battle. A classical scene straight out of the tragedies of Seneca, one of the most influential writers in the history of Europe. When you think of Seneca, you might be thinking about motivational lectures that are like considered philosophy, that barely get into the category of philosophy. But no, these are the tragedies of Seneca. This was written for the theater, performed live as theater, okay? And these directly influenced William Shakespeare. They were directly imitated by William Shakespeare, and then everyone else who speaks English has imitated Shakespeare ever since. Okay, this is not an edgy or difficult to prove theory that the tragedies of Seneca are among the most influential works ever written in any language on the planet, but written in Latin, but especially influential in English, as it so happens. Seneca almost got up out of his grave to rewrite that scene from season 3, episode 1. Oh, this is my wheelhouse. This is my special area of expertise. This is exactly what I'm known for and great at. This is what I invented. This is what I adapted from Euripides and Aeschylus. This is a scene in which a powerful, influential, insane woman is ranting to her servant. And the servant is trying to reason with her. I mean, if you know anything about Seneca, all right, several of the most famous and moving scenes he ever wrote were precisely that setup, precisely that formula. The woman is not necessarily a queen or a princess, but it's some kind of powerful, important woman, and the audience may not know to what extent she is sane or insane, or to what extent she's going insane on stage in front of us right now. And she is ranting, for example, that she wants revenge. She is reflecting on the injustices she's struggled against her whole life. She's talking through her plans about what terrible, wicked, evil deeds she's going to do next, going to do right now. And her servant or her slave is saying, no, 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 be kind, be reasonable, be good, think about the long-term consequences. And it's the good advice that you just can't take. What a contrast to look back at the glory of Seneca. Seneca, really here, this is purely the theater of the word. I've talked about this before. Many modern interpreters claim that Seneca's tragedies are impossible to perform. Why don't you give it a try, motherfucker? What is so hard about getting a woman to pace back and forth on stage and scream that she's been betrayed and she wants revenge? Whether she was betrayed by her husband or her whatever. I mean, there are variations in the literature here. But one way or another, these scenes that people today claim are just impossible to perform. Like, no, my dude. Okay, you want to have a scene of, several people climbing up a sheer ice wall. Jon Snow's plot in the North. You want to have a scene involving dragons, lighting things on fire. Okay, some of those ideas in George R. R. Martin's writing, difficult to put on stage, difficult to perform, even with computer special effects, they might seem to be impossible to mount convincingly. There's absolutely nothing impossible or even implausible about taking the ideas that Seneca set down on paper and putting them into motion on stage. Okay? What we've got unfolding now on stage, right, in Game of Thrones House of the Dragon, instead, you have a team of creative people, right, who are divided between the school of thought that bad writing is better than no writing at all, and the school that wants to continue the success of the earlier TV series, the Game of Thrones TV editors. No. Let's play it safe here and just have as little writing as possible. Let's have the characters say as few words as possible. Let's just have them emote and have facial reactions and call it a day, and lean so heavily on that camera cut, that fade to black, that set up one scene after another that ends irrationally mid-sentence, mid-paragraph, mid-phrase, so that the writers don't have to come up with what an intelligent or reasonably profound person would have to say in that circumstance, making the drama utterly meaningless. Okay, so a woman who kind of sort of claims to be the queen, but isn't really, walks up to a group of soldiers who are ready to defend the battlements. A battle is about to commence. There are dragons flying in on the horizon. And this queen, in quotation with this woman who kind of sort of has ended up in power temporarily because other people are not in the castle at that moment, she tells them to lay down their weapons. She doesn't even say it herself directly, right? She has an interpreter. It's a little bit more, all right, peculiar situation for these soldiers to interpret. And the soldiers ask the question, wouldn't this be treason? For us to just lay down our weapons and allow the castle to be conquered? Yeah, I understand your perspective. I understand your argument. This is going to save a lot of lives. But when you think about the definition of the word treason, she says back, sorry, it's not actually the queen speaking, but whatever. It's the queen mother who's taken over the reins of power informally, whatever. The question isn't whether or not I would consider this treason, but whether or not you would. Nice close-up shot of the guy's face, and he's thinking, and he's just about to say something. And scene, jump cut. Because these people have nothing to say. The problem isn't the fictional characters. The problem is the people in the screenwriting room. Quote, how could you do this to me? You answer me. That's all that this character has to say in this situation. Quote, I'm tired of losing people, Alan. Woo! Quote, not everything is about you, Damon. defied me. And now the reply, that's what sons do. Close quote, end of scene, jump cut. That's all there is to say in that situation. Grieving mother feels betrayed by her own son whom she was perhaps going to punish in some way, if he had survived the battle, we don't know. Again, that could have been fleshed out. She could have been swearing that she would take revenge on him, but then he comes back as a corpse. She complains that, quote, he defied me. It's the whole line. That's the whole... And the reply from her husband, quote, that's what sons do. This writing wouldn't be good enough to make it onto a Hallmark card, let alone to continue the tradition that began with Seneca and continued through William Shakespeare, so on and so forth. And look, I am not analyzing this show in terms of the contrast between what George R. R. Martin wrote and this team of TV screenwriters. This episode, what I'm doing here on YouTube, this is not book versus show. This is good writing versus bad writing. Okay, so the Queen, Rhaenyra, she finally has her chance to walk up the stairs to the Red Keep and sit on the Iron Throne. And she has an audience. This is not her alone with her husband or alone with one of her children or something. No. She's performing for an audience in more ways than one. There's an assembled audience of peasants and knights and what have you. They're different ranking employees of the castle there. This is her time to shine. She's been looking forward to this moment for at least months, if not years. And what is the philosophical statement of the lecture she gave? Are we going to see a scene like Polonius out of Shakespeare? And think about the context. Polonius saying goodbye to his son before his son leaves on a journey. His son is now a grown man. He's leaving home. And Polonius just has so much to say. You may love that scene. You may hate it out of Shakespeare's. There has never been one scene in House of the Dragon as well written as that scene with Polonius speaking to his son by this kid, William Shakespeare, this talented. You should really look into imitating what he does. Okay, and that doesn't serve any function in the plot. In terms of the plot, okay, kid's leaving town, father says goodbye, it's a wrap. House of the Dragon, you get one line like this. You get one line like, quote, I'm tired of losing people, or not everything is about you. No, Polonius has so much to say. And some of it is silly, some of it is self-parody, some of it's satirical, and some of it's profound. Right? William Shakespeare gives it all to you mixed up together and lets you decide, lets you choose. And the director or the production company that's mounting Shakespeare, they really get to choose. To what extent do we want to play this straight? To what extent do we want to present this as comedic? And what they omit and what they include out of that original script will tilt it one way or the other. That's not the only example. Shakespeare is very flexible that way. The vast majority of Romeo and Juliet is comedy. And modern readers don't realize that. They don't realize the extent to which it's actually a satire of, a parody of, an earlier play. Here I am breaking my own rule. Satire is not parody, guys. Parody, these are two different things. All right. Okay, so the Queen returns to walk up the stairs. She has an audience. Not just the audience, it's on the other side of the camp. There's an audience there in this fictional situation. There are all these people gathering, looking at her expectantly, worried. And all she has to say is, quote, do not be afraid. I've come to make things right. Close quote, end scene. Woo! Could we get a soliloquy? Or even, it could have been dramatic to have her struggling to say something. And then Damon steps in to say something profound. Or he says something snarky. There were many opportunities so that you could have the two of them competing to make a sort of historically significant pronouncement as these moments come to pass. But no. And And then the ultimate absurdity, Lord Hightower, he's had, I think, many months in a prison cell awaiting his death, thinking about what he would say in this situation when he's let out of the prison cell. This is his time to shine. He has an audience, huge number of people in the room, in the throne room, gathered there. He's standing in front of the Iron Throne, and all he has to say is, quote, "Just get it over with." This is bad writing. And the success of that first show, right, which was terrible writing. I mean, admittedly, obviously, seasons 1, 2, and 3 of Game of Thrones, the TV show, set up certain expectations, and then it got worse and worse and worse as the later seasons were. But, okay, the success of the original Game of Thrones TV adaptation set up for us this paradox. Would you rather have bad writing or none at all? Would you rather just have attractive middle-aged actors staring into the camera, emoting meaninglessly?